city across Australia on the National 9 network. Through Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth, it's Tonight with Bert Newton. And now, here's Bert.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to you. And a happy Queen's birthday to all the people watching. Well, have we got some people for you to meet this evening? Please, hold it back. There are lots of people we're going to ask you to clap for this evening. From England, one of the most successful comedy teams the country's ever produced, Cannon and Ball are with us this evening. And you will love them, I promise you. Their real names, of course, are Steve Turbo and Bob Steiner. Their comedy and their timing you'll find superb. They tell me that Bobby Ball searched for years to find a partner of Tommy Cannon's calibre. That's what I was told. And Cannon and Ball, you see. And speaking of balls, from the game of snooker, Australia's own Eddie Charlton is going to be with us too. And tonight, completely blindfolded, with one arm tied behind his back, whilst he whispers to himself, "Advance Australia Fair," Eddie will stand on his head and then separate 15 balls, with the red ball landing on the sole of his right foot. That's the trouble with Eddie, always doing the same old tricks, isn't he, eh? Do you know it's 20 years since the Beatles arrived here in Australia? And tonight we're going to reminisce with our own Molly Meldrum. Yep. We're very lucky to have Molly here this evening. Molly is on a quick 4-hour visit to Australia. And of course our special guest for tonight, one of the greatest actors in the history of motion pictures, everybody's favourite, Mr. James Stewart. It'll be a great thrill too to meet him, and I know that you'll love seeing him. One of the real legends. And tonight, Jimmy Stewart plans to finish answering the questions Don asked him 6 years ago. Just ahead of James Stewart, let's get the show off to a great musical start with the Graham Lyle Show Tonight Orchestra, conducted by Alan Deek, backing the Barbara Warren Smith dancers. Please make welcome Wendy Scammell with the title tune from the new hit movie Breakdance. Here's Wendy. Wendy Ann Scammell and the Barbara Warren Smith dancers with the Tonight Show Orchestra, conducted by Alan Deek. Graham Lyle is still away, but Graham, our love to you. Look forward to seeing you soon. Well, here's a moment that I never thought would come for me, and I'm so pleased that I happen to be sitting here this evening. James Stewart is one of the best known and most loved Hollywood actors ever. His career has spanned over 50 years and 80 movies, including 5 Academy Award nominations and an Oscar for the unforgettable Philadelphia Story. He shared the screen with such legends as Carole Lombard, Marlene Dietrich, Henry Fonda, Cary Grant, Bette Davis and John Wayne. He's worked with such distinguished directors as Frank Capra, John Ford, Anthony Mann, and of course the legendary Alfred Hitchcock.
It sounds so disapproving, Madge.
No, it's your life. You were the bright young lawyer that decided he was going to be chief of police someday.
I had to quit.
Why?
Well, it's because of this fear of heights I have, this acrophobia. I wake up at night seeing that man fall from the roof, and I try to reach out to him, and it's just...
It wasn't your fault.
I know, that's what everybody tells me.
Johnny, the doctors explained to you.
I know. I have acrophobia, which gives me vertigo, and I get dizzy. Boy, what a moment to find out I had it.
Whether in a thriller, a western, a biography, or showing his delightfully individual style of comedy, James Stewart personifies everything that's worthwhile in motion pictures. Ladies and gentlemen, James Stewart.
very kind, all of you. Thank you, Bert. The whole thing, that's very nice.
It's wonderful to have you here. You don't mind if Peter and I just drink in the fact that you're actually sitting between us, because we're both huge fans of yours.
Well, that's very nice.
I mentioned the various styles of films that you've made, romances and comedies and suspense films and westerns. Any particular favourite?
No, I don't think so.
I don't mean individual movies, I mean in style of movie.
No, I really don't think so, because they all have something that's nice, something that's interesting and everything. It's very hard to pick out one that's a favorite.
What about in westerns? Did you enjoy that? Because you are
love them.
Quite an outdoor man, aren't you?
Love them. In westerns, you know, nobody talks very much, and I like that. You know, they're sort of. I remember one time, years ago, we used to do westerns, sort of the radio version of western. And I did a western, and I sent the script to the radio people, and we were going to do a radio version of the movie. And they sent the script back, and they said, "We can't do this. Nobody says anything." Well, of course, in radio, you know, but westerns were wonderful.
The fact that you say that you like films where there's not too much speaking, and the fact that you have that very individual style of speaking, is it because you're a very shy man?
I wouldn't think so. I don't know. No, I never thought of myself being particularly shy. Slow and sort of mumbling, yes, but shy. No.
What sort of a childhood did you have, Jimmy?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful childhood in a small town in eastern America, town of Indiana, Pennsylvania, which always confuse people because Pennsylvania is a state and Indiana is also a state. Right? And when they say, "Where are you from?" I say, "Indiana, Pennsylvania." And they say, "Well, make up your mind. Where is it?" But it's a small town. I had two sisters younger than I was. My father ran a hardware store and worked hard until he was, 86 years old. And he sort of inherited the hardware store from his father. And his father inherited it from his father. So it was in the family a long time, until I sort of broke up the thing, got mixed up in this acting business. But I know the hardware business. I spent a lot of my young years there.
Well, how did acting come into your life?
Acting by accident. I was going to be an architect, and just my senior year in college, and I was just about to graduate, and a fellow came up and said, "Would you like to come up to Massachusetts? We have a stock company up there, and come up. You haven't been to the seashore, and we'll have some fun for the summer, and then you can go back to graduate school and be an architect and build buildings and do all the stuff that you've done." I said, "Fine." So I went up, and I think, this acting thing, it's like a bug. It bites you, and it bit me. And I went home and told my family that I wasn't going to graduate. I wasn't going to be an architect. I was going to do, and I had a little part in a play on Broadway, and I was going to be an actor. And bless their hearts, they were all very nice about it and everything. I just noticed that when I said this, everybody sort of reached for a chair, and especially my father, who never quite understood the acting business. And I think secretly he wanted me to carry on the hardware store, and in a way, I'm sorry, but I'm for his sake. I'm sorry.
Well, at least, like your mother and your father, you've retained the family image. I mean, indeed, you might have waited until reasonably late in life to marry, but you got married and you had a family pretty quickly, didn't you?
Yes, came as kind of a, well, not exactly a shock. No, yes, I'll call it a shock. No, I didn't get married until I was 41 years old, and I married this wonderful girl, and she had 2 young boys from a former marriage, 5 and 7. And after a year and a half or 2 years or something, we had twins. So here's this guy's 41 years old, and after a couple of years, I find out myself with 4 kids. It was quite a shock, yes. Yes.
We'll take this break. Our special guest tonight, ladies and gentlemen, on The Tonight Show, of course, Mr. James Stewart. Back with you soon.
Never twins in either one of our families.
Welcome back to the show. And Jimmy and I were just talking about the fact that the twins arrived. You were in London on a shoot at the time you got the news.
Yes, I was making a picture in London. My wife called me. She didn't quite get the difference in time, and it was about 4 o'clock in the morning. And she said, we're going to have twins. And I said, no, honey, come on. I have to be at work at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. What do you feel all right? What's new? You don't know about twins. She said, we're going to have twins. Well, I said, and we talked, and well, I was talking to it, when I got to work, I was talking to it with an electrician on the set. I said, my wife called me up awful early this morning and said we were going to have twins. And he said, do you have twin insurance? I said, what, twin insurance? And he told me about it. In London, when you go to get a marriage license, you go here, and then right next to it, Lloyd's of London has a place where you can insure yourself against multiple birth. Of course, the premium's pretty high if you have twins in your family. There'd never been twins in either one of our families, and I blew this thing. I could have sent the kids through college. I could have, and I didn't know about it.
Jimmy, how hard was it for you to combine a good personal life with a very successful career?
Well, I think a lot of that sort of was the work of my wife, bless her heart, and the children. They helped in that. I think they helped mainly because none of them thought about being actors, about being a part of show business at all. And Gloria, my wife, never did. She was all right, but they went off in different directions and didn't care for it. So that was no problem for us at all.
In what we call the golden years of Hollywood, who were your best friends?
Oh, Spencer Tracy, Cooper, Henry Fonda, and 50, 60 years we were friends. And Ray Milland I knew very well. Forrest Tucker, who's still around. Crosby I knew, and Bob Hope. They're all very, very pleasant memories, a lot of them. Not all of them are here.
Back in those years, did you have to have a killer instinct to succeed in the industry?
You mean sort of push yourself forward? No. Actually, all that killer stuff was done for you, really, in the big studios. And the big studios, you just worked. You went to work every day. You worked 6 days a week. You went to where we were there at 8 o'clock and left at 6. And you did everything from doing tests with people. You had voice teaching. You went to the gym every day so that you keep in shape. You would go off on tours with pictures you weren't even in, and sort of introduce them. But when they used to have vaudeville and pictures together, you know, it was pretty hard to introduce. When the first show was 10 o'clock in the morning, pretty hard to try and tell some jokes at 10 o'clock in the morning. It doesn't work. But it wasn't a question of you sort of making your mind. The big studios you took orders.
Do you regret that the old Hollywood is now dead?
Well, not exactly I regret it. I just think that the studio system, the way the old studios worked, I think that's missed today. Because in the studio system, I came out after years on the stage in New York, and I came out as a contract player. Now, a contract player, you do little parts in big pictures and big parts in little pictures, and you work all the time, as I say, in one of the big studios. And in doing this, although it sounds, you know, you don't jump to the top right up, and it was a lot of work and everything. But what you did, you learned your craft by working at it. Today, it's a little different than this, and I must say that it's kind of difficult for the young people, and I think it's wonderful that there are quite a few very good ones that have done it, but I think it's been a sort of personal thing that they've done themselves. And because they didn't have the advantage, which I think was a tremendous advantage of the big studios, to give you a chance to learn your craft by working at it.
One final question. You're the most imitated actor, I'm sure, in the history of the world. How do you feel about the people who do impressions of you?
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Rich Little, especially, a very good friend of mine, and every once in a while I start imitating Rich Little, and he approves of that.
Well, with all the imitators there are in the world of James Stewart, there is only one of the real thing, and it was an absolute pleasure to have the real James Stewart in the studio. Thank you.
Well, you're very kind. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Just about this, one thing, if you'll just stay. I know that because of the delightful examples you've shown on film of comedy and the way in which to do it, just stay and see one act, because I'm delighted now to introduce not only to yourself but also, of course, to the audience, two very special international guests with us this evening, Cannon and Ball. They've got some pretty impressive credentials too. Apparently, it all started on the factory floor when two welding mates were forever in trouble for mucking about. Well, that mucking about has led to the formation of one of the most successful professional comedy duos ever to come out of Britain. They're a wonderful team. They've been entertaining British audiences now for over 20 years in sell-out performances to capacity crowds. And on their own prime television program in England and Great Britain generally, they have millions upon millions of viewers. They've recently completed their fifth top-rating comedy series with London Weekend Television. So for Mr. Stewart and for, indeed, everybody, please welcome this evening Cannon and Ball.
Thank you. Thank you. I tell you. Have you finished? Thank you. Have you finished? Hey, have you finished? No, I'm just saying thank you. Well, you've said thank you enough, okay? You finished now? Okay, Tom. Great. I'm sorry. Great. Okay. It's great This is it, Tom, here, Australia. Yes, it's great to be here.
All right, Robert.
To be Robert who?
I loved him, Treasure Island.
Who?
How's the parrot?
Who? Robert Newton. Stupid idiot, that's not Robert Newton. What are you talking about?
Is it Isaac?
Isaac who?
Newton.
It's not Isaac Newton, right?
Is it Olivia Newton?
Not any of them, right? You stupid idiot. It's Bert Newton.
Sorry, Tom. Sorry.
Bert. Sorry about that, Bert.
Sorry, Bert. Sorry. Sorry, Tom.
You don't have to keep showing us up like
No, I'm not showing up, Tom.
All right, I mean, you think it's funny every night you're coming out here?
No, I'm
Do
just...
you think it's funny every night coming out here picking on people, showing them up?
No,
I mean, it's not that funny, is it? I mean, you and I come out here all the way from here.
No,
I mean, it isn't that funny, is it? I mean, I can't understand what... I don't understand what you're supposed to be doing. I mean, we're either doing an act together or we're not doing an act together. Are we a double act or aren't we a double act? Hey, are we? Are we?
No,
Hey, I mean, are we a double act? I mean, I don't know anymore. I don't know what we're supposed to be doing.
I've just...
What? What? Come on, get it out.
I'm just...
What is it? I mean, this is it, isn't it? I mean, I've come all this way to sing a song.
Yeah, but I've come as well, haven't I, to Australia?
Yes, I know you've come to Australia, but I come to
I mean,
sing
I'm pleased to be here as well as you.
I know, but I want to sing a song on my own. You're always messing around.
Yeah, well, just a minute. If I can just stop things here a minute.
Mm-hmm.
What about me?
What about you?
Bert.
Don't keep asking Bert. It's nothing to do with him. Right?
It's a show.
Never mind whose show it is. Nothing to do with Bert. I'm in charge here, right? Simple as that.
Yeah, but what about me?
Look, you want to participate?
I want to help if I can.
Yes, I know. Well, that's what I mean. But I mean, okay, you can help. You can announce me. Who? You? I do that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, madam, you shut your mouth that I'm trying to... I'm sorry,
For God's sake, man.
What
What are
are
you
you
doing,
doing,
man?
Sorry, please. Sorry, please.
Control yourself, madam, please.
Bert, I'm trying my best.
You get on with it, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, a song tonight sung by my friend and compadre, Tomoso Canoso, accompanied by his little compadre, Bobito Balso. Thank you. I'm excited about this.
So you're going to accompany me?
Yes,
What on?
piano. I'll play the piano.
Oh, I see. So you can play the pianoforte.
Don't be stupid. I can only play well. I'm not a pig in octave.
No, I know. That's what I mean, but I've got my own piano player.
Who is?
Yes.
He's no good. He's a pommy.
He's a pommy. What about you?
I've been here a week.
What are you talking about? That still makes you a pommy. Listen, I take him everywhere with me, right?
Tommy, I can play the piano.
No, honest, I'm not going to let him play the piano because it'll be embarrassing.
Listen, yeah, man. I can play the
You
piano.
cannot play the piano, all right?
I can play the piano.
All right, okay, you can play the piano. I'm going to give you a chance, okay?
You don't think I can?
No, come on.
Excuse me. Yes, bog off. Hey!
Come on, you think you can play the piano?
You don't think I can play?
No, I don't. Well, this is fantastic. Fabulous. Okay, help me make it through the night.
Sorry?
I said, help me make it through the night.
Tommy, I'm not like that now. I used to be, but I'm all right now. Please!
No, you've got it wrong. It's the song, help me make it through the night.
Oh, sorry, Tom.
It's okay.
Sorry, Bert.
Don't keep apologizing to Bert.
Ladies and gentlemen, a song...
Oh, sorry.
Hey, no, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, help me make it through the night, and this is serious. So, madam, just shut it.
Leave the lady alone.
Should have told you that's in lieu of a payment, by the way. In lieu of a payment.
Oh, I see.
Sorry, Bobby.
I saw.
You know, we certainly live in difficult times, all around us in real life, and to a certain extent in books, magazines, and on television. There are constant examples of people being aggressive toward each other. In fact, we are, it would seem, getting very close to wiping ourselves out with nuclear disaster. And these are obviously areas we should be vitally concerned about. Yet when you talk about the very subject of life, creation and reproduction, quite a few people, at least, throw their hands in the air and protest loudly when the word sex is mentioned. Now, tonight we're going to discuss why there is this fear about open discussion of a subject like sex. You might remember a couple of weeks ago with Bettina Arndt we talked about sex, and it's no lie to say that we received a lot of mail and telephone calls, and not all of the phone calls and mail was necessarily in agreement with us. So we thought it would be a good idea to have a chat with two of our regular guests. Firstly, clinical psychologist and sex therapist Bettina Arndt, and with her, award-winning radio commentator and journalist Derryn Hinch. Quite a combination, the two of you sitting there.
I suppose so. We go back a fair way, actually, don't we, Bettina?
I don't know if we've ever performed together before.
No, I don't think so. No. We shall see how it goes.
Speaking of performing, tonight Jackie is on stage, and 48 hours ago she wouldn't have known that she was going to be on stage.
My wife was on stage here in Melbourne doing a Molière play that Kate Fitzpatrick was meant to be in, and Kate's in hospital ill, and so Jackie, yes, she's treating the boards tonight. I don't know how she's done it.
She had to learn the script in what?
Yes.
24 hours?
24 hours, less than that.
Well, good luck to her. To the subject in point, why do people get upset when you talk about sex, in a forum situation on television? Firstly to you, Bettina.
Well, I think most of us are a little bit uncomfortable about sex. We've been taught to feel embarrassed about it. And when we are uncomfortable, often we get very anxious about sitting and watching something. I mean, we don't want to watch something we're uncomfortable about. And it's very easy to motivate people to sort of ring up and complain if they're afraid. I mean, it's really sad that for all the people who might be actually enjoying something, they're not very likely to ring in and say, that's terrific, I really think it's nice. Fear is a much better motivator than just sort of comfort and enjoyment. And so people are much more inclined to jump up and down if they're upset by something like discussion of sex.
I'll be interested to hear what you have to say, Derryn. Let me just tell you that since Bettina was last on, I've received, I suppose, in excess of 200 letters, and of those 200 letters, about 70 or 80 were against having you on the program and discussing sex. But so many of those letters were very well constructed from people who had complimentary things to say about other aspects of the program, my work, your work, and indeed your work. But they didn't want sex to be discussed in the media.
Well, one of the problems, I guess, I mean, I agree that sex should be discussed in the media, on radio and on television, and I think it serves a purpose. I wish that there's more sex education at home and also in the schools, and therefore you didn't have to do it. I think that people like the anonymity, especially say on radio, being able to call up somebody and talk about a problem without ever having to expose themselves, I mean that in the nicest way, expose themselves to something personal, and other people know about it. But what intrigues me when people say, well, isn't it awful to be on television or on radio, I just say turn off. If you know what's coming up, I mean, if I'm doing it on radio, I would say, well, this is going to be something that you might find offensive, so turn it off. And I have a deep suspicion after all these years that when you say that, people actually go over and adjust the colour or turn the volume up.
Yeah, well, that really is the good point. But that's the issue, isn't it? I mean, you don't do that proviso with politics or religion if you're going to discuss those things on radio or television. But why, the very being of life itself, sex, why is it so that people, and good people and clear-thinking people, get concerned?
There are a lot of myths about sex. One of the myths is that the idea that it should all come naturally, and therefore we shouldn't have to talk about it. That you shouldn't have to use the sort of words I'm inclined to use when I'm talking about sex. You shouldn't have to go into that sort of explicit detail. And yet one of the things that's happened to us is we've learned to regard certain parts of our body as taboo and not be able to talk to our partners about how we want those parts of our bodies to be touched. I mean, it always intrigues me. If I was your wife or your lover and you wanted me to scratch your back, you wouldn't have any hesitation in telling me, a little bit higher, a little bit lower. No, that's too soft. That's too hard. You wouldn't expect it, would you? That's true.
No, you see, I get here where I've got to make a decision.
I mean, you wouldn't mind.
I think Paddy is the better back scratcher. My lover is quite a nice person. No, I know what you mean.
You know, and you wouldn't expect just because I loved you, that's the other assumption, that if we love each other enough, it'll all just work out. And you wouldn't expect me to know where it itches just because I loved you, would you?
No, I wouldn't.
I mean, you'd tell me where the itch was.
I would, yes.
And you would know the words to describe where the itch was.
Yes.
You know, it's under the shoulder blade.
Mm-hmm.
We're not...
What are we getting at?
I think one of the problems that's developed, and it's the field that you're in, there are some shonks in your field, we've talked about that on this program before in various areas. I think that some people still in the self-styled sexologists who still love the idea of using a word like penis on national television is wow, big deal, and they prey on that a bit to get notoriety. The other thing I find in my own job in radio, that if I read every book that comes across my desk that supposedly tells me what I should or should not be doing with sex, I'd never have time to do anything. I mean, it's just, there's some areas where people just who've sort of jumped onto a bandwagon, and some so-called sex books that have come across to me, I think are junk. Some obviously are not. But what it does in a worry is that it sometimes raises people's, not so much the expectations, but they're sitting at home, maybe between them have a very happy sex life, but they're so amazed at reading in every magazine, every time they pick up a Cleo or a Cosmo, that they haven't had the big O or multiple orgasm, their sex life's being ruined by the fact of what they're reading, not by what they're doing.
Yeah. Of course, society's changed so much. I remember when I was a kid at school, and I guarantee there'll be a lot of people in my age group who would be able to identify with this. I mean, compulsive reading was the Africa section of National Geographic, and you know that was about it. That was the end of the line.
And we never really learnt to talk naturally about them. It was just sort of titillating, looking at breasts and so on. We never learnt to actually be comfortable about them, and that's the real problem. I mean, we were afraid of sex. We're afraid for ourselves. We're afraid because we don't know how to relate to our partners properly.
Are we really? I mean, you say people, we are afraid of sex. Well, I'm saying I don't feel very afraid of sex.
You know something? This is honest.
Are you? You're afraid of sex?
If you believe me, and please believe me, since you first discussed it, I have got this dreadful itch on my back. Just after you talked about it, my word of honour.
But you got the point I was making about that.
Yeah.
We don't know the words to use when it comes to communicating about sex, and that applies to us talking to our husbands, and it applies to us talking to our children, and I think that's the area where we are very afraid. We look back to our past experiences, and we don't want the same things happening to our kids that perhaps happen to us.
For you personally, what about the people, and many of the letter writers, to me anyway, suggested that you were more showbiz than academic?
Well, I mean, I don't want to be an academic. My business is talking to ordinary people about the ideas I learnt when I was working in the academic area, when I was being trained. I think there's a real problem in a lot of the books you mentioned, are full of terms and full of sort of highfalutin ideas about sex that have nothing to do with people's real lives. And my business is trying to talk to people about what they are worried about, what they're interested in, and giving them some of the answers.
What do you do to get away from work?
I look after my children, I take the garbage out, I read books.
But is it hard for you to get away from the job because you're talking sex for so many hours every day?
It's true. It's very difficult, actually, and the better known I become, the worse it is. You know, every time I get into a taxi or people are constantly wanting to talk to me about sex, and I suppose it shows to me how much need there is, how many people actually do want to learn about it. And for all of the people who are anxious and say, stop this, there are a lot of people who are saying we really need more information.
Quickly along the panel, I know we're almost out of time. Should sex be discussed openly on television in adult time? Peter?
Certainly should.
Colleen?
I think so.
What about you, Bobby?
Me and Tommy discuss it
all the time.